Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Ask the Experts session. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are in the world. Today, we're going to do an Ask the Experts session about elevating security and efficiency with Azure Sentinel. My name's Sarah Young. We're going to introduce everyone a little bit later on. But just to start with, just a couple of housekeeping things. Use the chat to ask questions. We've got a load of really talented, awesome Microsoft folks on the chat who are all Sentinel experts. So ask as many questions as you can. And the questions will appear to all the attendees once they've been approved by a moderator. Please upvote your favorite questions. Some of the questions will be answered verbally by our experts on camera, and some of them will be done over the chat. So it will depend on what the moderator decides is the most interesting. So we'll also be providing some more resources once the session concludes. So hopefully you'll enjoy this, and let's get going. Again, last little bit of housekeeping. This session may be recorded. Please don't spam or post inappropriate comments, and make sure you adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct. I'm not going to read the whole thing out for you, but basically be a nice person. And with that, I will introduce our experts. So I guess I'll introduce myself first. My name is Sarah Young. I'm a senior program manager on the Azure Sentinel Customer Experience Engineering team. I'm based in New Zealand, so it's Wednesday evening for me now. Hesham, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, Sarah. So my name is Hisham Saad. I'm Senior Regional Technical Cybersecurity in Microsoft, based out in Dubai, covering Europe and Middle East and Africa, primarily focusing on what we're calling security analytics, covering SIEM operations, SOC, digital forensic, and advanced hunting.
Cool. And Nicholas is a little bit late, so isn't with us quite yet, but he will be on soon. And with that, we can crack on with the questions, and you can just look at our faces instead. Cool. So first question, what do we have? Now, apologies, I'm also looking for the questions at the same time. Do you know what, Hesham? I'm going to ask you a question. Do you want to tell us about the new Sentinel announcements for Ignite? What have we already talked about?
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah, and that's what we announced. So we do have a kind of a major announcement that has been already announced. One of the key one is it's a full deep integration with the Microsoft XDR, we're calling Microsoft 365 Defender. So right now, that with integrated incidents that will be able to get the breadth of SIEM using Azure Sentinel, which is combined with the depths using the XDR extended detection and response with 365 Defender. And this will give the built-in deep optics to the SOC team and even the analyst, having a full integrated, not only by having the raw data based on the selections from the admin, but having more depths and integrated even for syncing the incidents, which is correlating the alerts directly between the solutions. And that's what we are calling the unified XDR and SIEM from Microsoft. And one more exciting announcement that has been shared is more improvements into the data collections. We know in Azure Sentinel, we have the data connectors, which is provide a direct service-to-service integration with third-party solutions. With the announcements, we have additional 30 new data connectors, like Cisco, Meraki, Umbrella, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and more, which will provide an easy way for organizations and customers in order to have this direct service-to-service integration with less effort, less time in order to do parsing integrations with just an out-of-the-box data connectors. And last but not least, one of the key improvements as well into the automation, which is a sword engine, as we all know, is Azure Sentinel, is what we're introducing the automation rules. So now, SOC analysts and admins will be able to create the direct automation rules in Azure Sentinel, apart from the automation SOAR layer, that will help them to take an action based on multiple conditions of analytics rules and detections, based on multiple actions that can be taken. These actions that can including triggering or running a playbook, logic app was. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're back. I wasn't sure if that was your
So,
internet or mine.
No, it's working. So what I was saying is the capabilities from the announcement, which is to summarize, it's the new data connectors, a total of 30 new connectors that has been released, which is make it easy for the team to have a direct service-to-service integration, the deep integration with Microsoft 365 Defender as an XDR by having synchronization for the incidents and not only getting the raw data, and last but not least, the automation rules, which will make it easy to create a specific rules that have a multiple conditions from an analytics in addition to multiple actions that can run a playbook, that can even assigning a task to a specific analyst or user, or can maybe updating a status or even a comment.
So I'm gonna, seeing as we've just got the two of us, Hesham, I'm gonna ask you this question, but I'm also probably gonna interrupt you. But
No.
What is the best way of getting up and running with Sentinel in like the first 30 days? Because we know that when you turn on Sentinel and a log analytics workspace for the first 31 days, you've got up to 5 gig of free ingestion. So yeah, what would you advise someone who's new to Sentinel to do with that first 31 days?
That's a really good question, Sarah. Since we do have like kind of a 31 kind of a trial days, which is a benefits that organizations they can spin up like an Azure Sentinel attached to log analytics workspace, and then starting to one of the key points to focus is about the data collections. So what exactly the main use cases and requirements as an organization need to achieve? So don't focus only on just I would like to ingest and correlate and aggregate data coming from multiple sources, whatever it's a cloud or even an on-premise, because Sentinel is provide you technically the way to ingest and pull data from any source. But most importantly, focus on the use cases and scenarios for your SOC. What exactly you're looking to have? You'd like to get cases and data coming from monitoring the cloud, in addition to see that what are the main vital assets from your on-prem and starting to see the correlation and the fusion and the multi-stage detections that's happening from a Sentinel. So one of the key points is focus on what are the main workloads, what are the main data sources, and define your use cases and accordingly starting to do the implementation. And not just bringing data, store it into workspace, and then starting to look at what are the built-in cases that you can be enabled. So one of the key points, focus on your workloads, your use cases, your scenarios and requirements, and what are the benefits that will be able to provide to using Sentinel.
Do you think that's quite a lot, though, for at least some organizations to be able to do in 31 days? Are there any particular aspects you think that folks should focus on? Because obviously moving to any new product, any new technology is a journey, right? And 31 days is only a month, and when you've got other things going on, is there anything that you would say you would recommend a customer prioritized in there?
Yes, exactly, Sarah. So one of the main key priorities is focus exactly on your success criteria. So for example, you are an organization that you are adopting the cloud. You used to have an on-prem environment, you are adopting the cloud, you're using whatever Microsoft cloud or other clouds, because Sentinel is actually provide you a way to monitor the cloud sources, whatever Microsoft, Azure, Microsoft 365, or even AWS, Google, Oracle, etc. So first one is focus exactly what are the main success criteria, the use cases, and then starting to run set of analytics rules. Look at the powerful capabilities coming from your Sentinel or your next generation of a SIEM. How we'll be able to detect high fidelity incidents and alerts, and focus how you'll be able to fine-tune false positives and how to overcome any challenges that might be related to having a alerts fatigue. So these are the main key points that you need to prioritize or to set as a kind of a SOC if you're looking for utilizing the next generation of a SIEM, which is Azure Sentinel, to the most.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask myself a question and answer it, because then I'll give you a break for a second from talking. But another question we get asked a lot is, do you recommend, and what we've had in the chat is, do you recommend Azure Sentinel only for large companies, or is it also for small and medium businesses? Now, actually, I would say, you may have noticed if you look at the Sentinel pricing calculator online, we give capacity reservations for large amounts of data ingestion, so 100 gig a day, 200 gig a day, etc. But of course, if you're a small business, now you may never get to that amount of logs. But the great thing about Sentinel is that because it's SaaS and you're not having to set up lots of infrastructure like you would with a traditional on-premise SIEM. In fact, I'd say that Sentinel is perfect for small and medium businesses too, because you pay for what you ingest. So the cost of Sentinel is only ever going to be related to what you're ingesting. So yeah, I would say it's actually something that's very useful for small and medium businesses, because you're not needing to set up VMs, set up licenses, do all of that work like you had to do with traditional on-prem SIEMs. You've still got to do some of the same work that Hesham was just talking about. So, you know, you do need to look at your use cases, decide your log sources, etc. Because at the end of the day, the cost does come down to how much you ingest, but you're getting like a really rich feature set in Azure Sentinel. We don't have it modular. You get everything when you turn on Azure Sentinel. You get UEBA, you get automation, and again, traditionally you might have to bought these as add-ons. So I think Sentinel is perfect for any size organization. Did you have anything to add to that, Hesham?
Yeah, if I may add something, Sarah, I think added to what you shared exactly is another couple of points. So we highly recommend to have a look at the Forrester Wave study that was released in 2020, mainly on the security analytics. So it's very clear in the report of the Forrester Wave how actually Azure Sentinel is mainly designed from a scaling point of view, since it's a SaaS service based on an Azure. So it's exactly fits large, big enterprise organizations or a medium or a small size. In addition to what you shared related to the pricing or the capacity. So we're offering a couple of options, pay as you go, or even reserved capacity. If you are a big or even a medium organizations, you know, you have a clear kind of an estimation or an average what kind of logs that being ingested into Gigabyte into your workspace. So you'll be able to get the benefits of the discount via the reserved capacity options.
Now, I've seen a question in the chat that one of my colleagues is replying to, but I want to just address it because we do get asked it a lot. Someone has asked, is it easy to set up Sentinel for a small business, or do I need to contact a partner for implementation? Now, I would say, again, I'm going to give the very on the fence. It really depends, but the whole idea, the whole ethos of Sentinel is that it's really easy to set up yourself. We come with so many out-of-the-box features that, yeah, you can certainly connect data sources, turn on analytics rules, activate workbooks with very little knowledge of KQL or cloud security, and you would be able to get Sentinel up and running and doing something meaningful. So no, you don't necessarily need a partner. I don't know, what's your experience, Hesham, in that space? Would you say customers tend to do it themselves? Do they go for partners, or is it a mix?
Frankly speaking, we're seeing a lot of enterprise customers. It's not necessarily to be in a big one, or they have a massive team in terms of a SOC analyst, IR, etc., and admins, which is they are spinning up and creating Sentinel Announcements by themselves. It's super crystal easy, and we highly recommend to look at the docs.microsoft quick start for Azure Sentinel. We have a clear step-by-step guide and instruction with the screenshots that showing that how it will be easily to spin up creating a log analytics workspace, attaching Azure Sentinel on top of it, and starting to enable the data connector, starting to ingest the data and build your own use cases and requirements. So it's easily to that you yourself, you'll be able to spin up and create a Sentinel and deploy it. But most importantly, before starting touching and doing the deployment, look exactly understand the architecture. What is the whole idea of what you need to do? Are you in a kind of a single organization that have a single Azure AD tenant, or you are an MSSP, or you are a multinational organization that have a different site and branches with different segregated Azure AD tenants, and you need to have the global SOC parent view in addition to the sisters or childs, and you'd like to have the cross workspace. So first ask yourself, before spinning this one and having the Sentinel instance, what is exactly your high-level architecture, what's your requirements, and then starting to leverage the quick start in order to do the deployment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've seen, as I'm sure you have, I've seen a mixture here. I've had customers who've gone to a partner for implementation, or they've done the basic setup themselves, and perhaps if they have particular use cases that are outside of their skill set to be able to create, then they may get a partner to do that. But certainly, I think there are a lot of resources, and especially if you're a small business, maybe going to a partner might not be an option, but there are lots and lots of resources. We're going to share them at the end as well, where you can go and learn Azure Sentinel and learn how to set it up yourself. I mean, I'm probably not the right person to ask, but I mean, how quickly can you set up a Sentinel instance, Hesham? I can probably get it up and running in about half an hour, but I'm probably not. Half an hour? An hour?
I think the time, it depends, but let's definitely certainly less time. And that's one of the main key criteria as well in terms of deployment and optimizing cost from an infrastructure, because it's a SaaS service. What do you mean by SaaS service? It's service hosted in Azure. You're leveraging the SaaS, you're just taking a few times or actually minutes in order to spin it up. One of the key point is what will happen once we created a Sentinel instance, right? It's up and running, we're having access to the dashboard, to the plate. One of the key point is look exactly what are the main access role and permissions that need to be granted and who will have an access in order to do what into your environment. So time, it can be even few minutes in order to spin it up. I agree 100% with you, Sarah. But the big key point, look exactly what are the main access role and the permissions that need to be granted once you spin it up.
Yeah, now we're going to change tack a little bit, and we're going to talk about, this is a very big question, but again, we get asked it a lot, and there's definitely been some questions in the live Q&A about this. Cost management. So it's a big one because, as we said, Sentinel is pay for what you ingest. What are your recommendations for, because everyone's got a budget, very few, if any, businesses have a blank check. What would you recommend for best practices for making your ingestion rate more efficient to minimize your spend in Sentinel, or to maximize the efficiency, maybe we should say?
That's a really good question, Sarah. So a couple of points. Rule of thumb number one is applies a best practice. What do you mean is, do you have, always think about to have a consolidated unified log analytics workspace. Don't start to think about having multiple Sentinel instances unless there is specific requirements or a business needs, because imagine that you might duplicate the data or sending to multiple Sentinel instances or workspaces, and this definitely will increase your cost. So number one, think about from an architecture based on your requirements, the unified best practice or concepts. And then second, about look at exactly at the data, because Sentinel cost, as we all know, is actually rely on or billing based on the ingested data in terms of gigabytes. So primary focus on what are the main necessarily and needed data that we need to ingest, and we need to run an analytics on top of it. Because Sentinel, as we know, the costing depends on two factors, the ingestions and the analytics. So key point is focus exactly what are the main necessarily data that need to be ingested. Is it security data? Or you might have a requirement that we need to have an auditing, monitoring data or logs coming from specific workloads that we need to run analytics and detections on top of it. And then once you're starting to look at the data, what kind of even data? I need to get like a security events coming from a virtual machines, from a server, from workstations and endpoints, etc. Do we need to get the entire set of security events or all data, or I need to specify a set of a common, or even I need to filter even the data of security that we need to ingest? So one of the key points in terms of optimizing the cost is look exactly about your architecture, the best practice, which workspaces, the unified concept. Second is look exactly what are the main necessary data that you need to ingest, because these are the main data that will be built for by running analytics and ingestions and storage. And then starting to look exactly if I'm looking for a security or a monitoring or an audit logs, can we still be able to filter and audit this data? And there's a way, there's a way that how you can optimize it. And one of the key points that we recommend as well, Sarah, we have a built-in kind of a workbooks, one of the main interactive dashboards and report in Azure Sentinel in terms of the data collection and monitoring, which is available. So anyone is using an Azure Sentinel, they can go to the workbox. They're going to see one of the most amazing dashboards or workbooks called data collections and monitoring. They will exactly see every single kind of a data table that's being ingested from a specific data source. Show me the size, show me this one is a kind of a billable use or no, in addition to the exact volume of data. These are the main key points, honestly, that we recommend all of the organizations in order to look at how they can optimize the cost and not just to be pulling every single logs from all of the sources and just ingesting into your SIEM solution.
Yeah, and I would add to that, I don't have the sticker to hand, but I have a sticker that says collection is not detection. Now, in old on-premise SIEMs, often people would just collect every single log they could because you'd have paid a certain license fee, you'd have paid for your licenses and your VMs, and then no matter how many logs you threw at that SIEM, it wasn't going to cost you any more money. So a lot of businesses do, when they start moving to cloud, they will strategically think, oh, we'll just do exactly the same thing. We will put every single log in our SIEM. But, you know, as I said, collection is not detection. If you're not running detections on your log, on those logs, and you're not proactive hunting on them, you do need to ask yourself why you're putting them in your SIEM, because you probably don't need them. Another thing I think is worth us talking about here, Hesham, is the integration, which is relatively new, that we can have with ADX or Azure Data Explorer, because that's something that's really, really interesting. If you Azure Data Explorer also uses KQL. It is a but you can actually use Azure Data Explorer as a long-term storage solution for your Azure Sentinel data. So if you still need to query it, but you don't need to have incidents and things like that, then you can use Azure Data Explorer as kind of, think of Log Analytics and Sentinel as your hot store. Azure Data Explorer would be your warm store, and then Blob would be your cold store. And it is at a reduced cost as well. So rather than keeping things for, say, a year or 2 years in Log Analytics and Sentinel, you might keep things for 3 months in Log Analytics and Sentinel and move it into ADX. There's a lot of different architectural things you can do there. One of my very esteemed colleagues has written an excellent blog post that you can find on the Microsoft Tech community on that. But yeah, Hesham, have you done anything with that?
Yeah, it's exactly as you said, Sarah, that one of the key points that you highlighted is look at exactly what are the level of data. Is it hot or going to warm or even to a long term, which is a cold one? And ADX is pretty much straightforward, creating a cluster, having a database, having integrations, and then look exactly what are the architecture, how we'll be able to create the pipeline, how we'll be able to store the data for cold storage in order to reduce the cost.
Now, there's another, and this is a tricky one. So this is a really, really tricky question that I've been asked a lot, and I'm really keen to get your thoughts. And someone asked in the chat, our calculator at the moment, it only gives you kind of the number of gigs. It only lets you calculate the number of gigs ingested plus your retention. So, but of course, some businesses, particularly if they haven't had a SIEM in the past, so they can't go on their previous numbers, ingestion figures, will say, I want to say I have like 1,000 users and this many servers. How many gigabytes a day would that be? Now, it's a really tough question, and I have been asked it. It's a really, I don't know, Hesham, what do you think? I know what I'm going to say about this, but should I put you on the spot, or shall I go first? Yeah,
go first, please, and then I might add some.
So this is a really, really difficult one, because, and the reason that we don't have an estimation for that is because from organization to organization, it can really, depending on what log sources you collect and which ones you have. So if you, depends on what EDR solution you have, if you have MDM for each user, it's really, really difficult for us to be able to give a guideline as to how many megabytes or gigabytes a single user will calculate per day. It's very, very tricky, which is why the calculator doesn't involve that at the moment. Having said that, what I have recommended customers do is utilize that 31 days free trial where you can set up a log analytics workspace and set up Sentinel. And bear in mind, you've got 5 gig. You don't want to go over 5 gigabytes. But what you could do, if you really don't know, is you could set up a trial workspace, ingest data into it, and then see if you can use, when the data's hit Log Analytics and Sentinel, you're able to query it within Sentinel, and you might be able to get yourself an estimation for your business about roughly how much you're ingesting. It's a very good question. We get asked it a lot. Unfortunately, it's not a very easy one-size-fits-all solution for us to be able to give estimations, but I can absolutely understand from a customer perspective why you would want that information to help you with your pricing. It's just very tricky for us to be able to give that generically. I mean, what do you think, Hesham?
Yeah, exactly, Sarah. So you'll not be able to get like an accurate number in terms of dollar sign. You'll be able to get like an estimate. And once we recommended exactly, we're working with multiple enterprise organizations. And during the trial period or even the evaluation phase, which is the 31, what we're doing is we are focusing primarily on the key data connectors and workloads. Because they know that I need to integrate with my firewall. It can be on-prem or a cloud, VPN proxy, or might be in a cloud workloads or providers or any kind of data source. So we are focusing on specifically what are the main kind of a chatty or a vital assets to their requirements or their business, and then starting during the evaluation of the POC, starting to do the ingestions, focusing exactly what needs to be done, and then getting an average kind of an estimation of size before conclude the POC or even the evaluation phase. And then we're sharing with them, here is the average number, here is the kind of estimated dollar sign or whatever you're going to pay in terms of ingestions, in terms of storing. That's what we are actually practically doing with all of the organizations, and this gives them a kind of a confidence of what they are expected to pay in terms of billing once they're starting to use a solution in their production environment.
But it's a good question, and just to add to that, we've done a lot of cost today, but I realized if something is too expensive, then people can't use it no matter how great it is. Cost is the bottom line for most organizations. But how about if you're an MSSP? And an MSSP, of course, a service provider would need to provide estimated costs to their customers. Do you have any advice for them? Because that's a slightly different scenario.
It's exactly a slightly different scenario, Sarah. Because MSSPs, the whole idea is they need to provide a service for the same for Azure Sentinel to multiple organizations, or might be a simple one is a specific organizations that have like a multi-sites. So the key points here is just to focus on buildings architecture. And then once they start to build the architecture in terms of using the Azure Lighthouse to serving their customer, is starting exactly to see what are the main data they need to provide it. Is it a common use cases or scenarios in terms of detections they need to provide to all, or it might be relating on the data, it might be relating on analytics rules, it might be relating even to some of the playbooks or automation. They need to serve it as an MSS to the entire customers or tenants they are serving.
Yeah, but again, another good question, and it is real tricky with all these logs and different sources and different environments because no one's got quite the same. So yeah, it's a tricky one, I know. Anyway, Hesham, I mean, what else? So many things going on. Is there anything that you want to highlight that you think people should go look at during Ignite, or any sessions they should play back? Because we're coming to the end of our time, so I'm going to start to wrap up a little bit.
Yeah, so one thing that we can highlight it or share it, Sarah, with everyone is there are a couple of scenarios I know, because we're receiving a lot of asks about can we use Azure Sentinel running side by side, because we do have an existing kind of a SIEM solution we might be using for a couple of years. We fine tune it and it's up and running, and we'll love to use Azure Sentinel for specific requirements, not only to monitor the cloud, but we might extend it. So our recommendation is you do not need to wait for your current SIEMs that will go to end of life or expiration due. Start leveraging Azure Sentinel now. We're supporting having the side-by-side scenario, and then you might starting look at how to monitor the clouds. And we said that cloud for us or for Azure Sentinel is not only Microsoft. It can across any kind of clouds for AWS, for Google, or even on Oracle. So start leveraging Azure Sentinel now, even if you're planning to having side-by-side. Start with the cloud workloads, focusing on the specific what are the main data and use cases that you'd like to monitor or add. And once you're starting, gradually you can migrate to the on-prem workloads as well. So you will have a kind of transition plan in order to even completely rely on an Azure Sentinel as your main prime SIEM, and you don't need to wait until your current SIEM is almost end of life. Because we all know that migration from a SIEM to another one, it takes time as a journey. So that's a time now that you can start using Azure Sentinel, enable it, leveraging, and check the power and the coming from the clouds using the fusions and analytics and all of the goodies coming off Azure Sentinel.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I believe we're just about coming up for time. So I want to say thank you, Hasham, for joining me. Thanks for answering all those questions. I also want to say thanks to all the wonderful Sentinel experts who have been answering your questions online. Thank you for all your questions as well. It's been great to hear what you want to know about more in terms of Azure Sentinel. But just on the last screen here, we do have some further resources. Please join the tech community. We have a great Sentinel tech community that's run with all the great Microsoft people who do Sentinel. We have our learning paths at aka.ms, Azure-Sentinel-Learn-Collection, and we've got an interactive guide as well if you're just getting set up with Sentinel. So yeah, there's tons of things out there. We're all here. Sentinel's great. We want you to learn more about it and make it easier for you. So reach out on the tech community. Reach out to, if you have Microsoft account teams, reach out to your Microsoft folks. They want to help you. And thank you very much, everybody. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, no matter where you are in the world. Please stay safe and enjoy the rest of Ignite.